Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So it is February 1st, which means it is time for me to do my what I bought versus what I read video. I made this last month and now I am going to do it this month. So please excuse my voice. I am currently sick right now. So if I sound a little froggy, that's why. And apparently Murray needed to be a part of this video. You say hi? Say hi. So I'm sure she'll be popping in and out of this video. Can you lay like a normal person, please? Thank you so much. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you guys all the books that I purchased or received or just ended up getting for the month of January. These are all just the physical books that I got. I did get a lot of other books because I actually got a Kindle earlier this month. So that's my first little announcement is I did get a Kindle. I got the Kindle Paperwhite Generation 12 in the raspberry color. Yes, the case is a little mixed up, but anyway, so I have a lot of books that I've gotten on there, but if I tried to do both my Kindle books and my physical books, we would be here all day. Let's just go ahead and jump right on into this video. So we're going to first start with the books that I purchased. This first book is Aristotle and Dante Dive Into the Waters of the World. This is a book fairy gift that I've received at the beginning of this month. This is actually the sequel to the Aristotle and Dante's duology, I believe. And I actually didn't keep the first book. It was like the day before I had decided to resell it because I was like, I haven't picked this book up since. I haven't gotten its sequel, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And then the very next day, I got book fairied this book. So yeah, sometimes the universe just likes to play tricks on you, and this is the case with this. So very excited to read this book. Another sequel that I got this month is Killer Instinct, which is book 2 in the Natural series, which you may or may not see later on in this video. This is book 2. I'm very excited to read this. I really enjoyed book 1. Like I said, I'll talk about it here in a little bit. So I did get book 2. I only buy books in a series, like one book at a time, just because it's just easier and better for me that way. Especially if I'm like not falling in love with like the rest of the series. It's just, anyway, but yeah, I'm very excited to have this book. And then my last, sequel that I got, from books that I actually read this month. So again, you might see the first book in this book later on, is Two Twisted Crowns. Like I said, you may or may not see One Dark Window, which is the first book, later on in this video. And I really enjoyed the first book, so of course I had to get the sequel. I actually got this before I even finished the first book. I never do that. I'm like, no, I need to get the first book finished and then I'll pick up the sequel. But I was at Barnes & Noble with my dad and I was picking up the second book in the Natural series. So I was like, you know what? I'm already here. I'm like really close to the end of the first book. I'll just grab this. So, okay. So now let's talk about books that I got in a book outlet order. I received, I think, 7 books in that order. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Up we have By a Thread by Lucy Score. I haven't read any books by Lucy Score yet. I do have the first book in the Knock 'Em Out series. I haven't started it yet, obviously, but I did grab this one because it seemed very interesting. And then I received Pride and Prejudice. This is another book that I purchased. I'm trying to have more classics in my collection because there are a lot of classics that I read like through school and stuff, and it was just really hard to get into them. But I still want to try and have some classics in my collection in case I ever want to read a classic, and I've never read Pride and Prejudice before. So this is the edition that I got through Book Outlet. It is the Paper Mill Press edition, and I really like it. I love the colors of it, so that is now in my collection. Then I got the Rin in the Holly Library. I got of course, the beautiful editions. This is another book I got through Book Outlet, and I'm very excited. I've heard interesting things about this one, and I'm very excited. That's what the end papers look like. And then, ooh, I haven't seen that before. That's fun. And another book that I got through the Book Outlet order is The Assassin's Blade. I do have Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I got it like way like at the beginning of my reading journey, and I've heard kind of mixed reviews of like when you should read this book, and I'm thinking whenever I do get to that series, I'm gonna read this book first because it is technically like the prequel to like all the events in the series. And so I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I saw it on Book Outlet, so I just went ahead and grabbed it. So yeah, I haven't finished ACOTAR yet. I'm currently reading the third book right now on graphic audio on Audible. So I have 2 more books left in that series after the third book, and then I will hopefully get to the Throne of Glass series. So the next book that I got in the Book Outlet order is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I really loved a novel love story by her, and I already have the 7-Year Slip, so I decided to get her other book, The Dead Romantics, and I'm really excited. This is like the one that's like has the most damage. It's not like really bad, it's just like a few, you know, bents on the cover and on the back and stuff, and so it's a secondhand website Book Outlet, so you know, not every book is going to be in the most perfect condition, but I kind of have the thought process of like, as long as there aren't any like, you know, damages that are like super ripped or like completely falling apart, I think it's fine. You know, this isn't going to bother me all that much. And look how floppy it is. Look at the floppiness on that. Like, that is crazy. And then the last 2 books that I got from the Book Outlet order is Wild as the Witch by Rachel Griffin. I read the 2 other books by her. Sorry, my dog is like at my feet right now. Anyway, I've read the 2 other books by Rachel Griffin and I really enjoyed them. So I grabbed this one by her. And then I think she has a new book coming out this year at some point. I'm not exactly sure when or like what the title is or anything. But I really enjoy Rachel Griffin's writing, and her books are like they come with my Audible subscription, so I don't have to pay extra for it, which is super nice. So I'm really excited to dive into this one at some point. And the last book that I got in my Book Outlet order is This Is How You Lose the Time War. I've heard a lot about this book, and even though I know it's going to be like this super confusing book, I'm very curious to see if I'm going to like it or not. I think especially going in, like knowing that I may not understand like exactly what I'm getting myself into, I think will be good. Because I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same thing with Shakespeare. You know what I mean? Like when you go in and you like read Shakespeare, like you know you're not going to really like know what's happening in terms of like the dialogue and everything. But like, yeah. So very excited to read that. So then earlier this week, I decided to hit up my local half-price books, and I did get 3 books while I was there. So I picked up Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. I've read These Violent Delights by her, and I thought it was pretty good. So I'm excited to dive into this series. With it being secondhand, there is a crease in the spine, which I didn't realize when I first got it, but you know, like I said, it's not that big of a deal, especially since it is secondhand. Then I got Serpent and Dove, which is another book that I've been wanting for a really long time. So when I saw that it was at half price and it was only $6, I had to get it. And then the final book that I got at half price books is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I have a couple of other books from him, and I've read his book, The House Across the Lake, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good thriller. So I'm really excited. And then my grandmother's also really into thrillers, and we both have really enjoyed Riley Sager. So I picked this up for not only me, but also for her. Speaking of thrillers, like I said, my grandmother and I we're both really big readers, and we do have a tendency to like read the same books. So a lot of times whenever she picks up a book, I'll put it in my collection or vice versa. So at some point earlier this week, she had to run to Target to grab something, and she grabbed Frida McFadden's newest book, The Crash. So yeah, I've read The Housemaid by her. I haven't read any of her other books, but she's so talked about on TikTok that, and on just social media in general, that I just had to add this in my collection. So this is technically my grandmother's purchase, but I did add it in my collection because I'm sure I will also read this book at some point. So those are all the books that I purchased or received at some point this month. The stacks of books just fell. So anyway, so now let's go ahead and get into the books that I actually read this year. So I actually read 6 books this month, and that's pretty good for me. Usually I read anywhere between 4 to 6 books. That's kind of my average, but it's pretty rare that I do get to like the 6 book mark. So I'm really proud of myself. I think having this Kindle really did help. So yeah, so the first book that I read, I did purchase it on my Kindle, and I did read it on my Kindle. It was actually through NetGalley as an ARC that I first got it, and then I finished it on my Kindle, and that is An Island Strange and Wild. I finished that book at the beginning of this year, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good book. It was definitely a book that was very different than a lot of other books that I've read. I thought that it had a lot of just, like, I loved the place that it took. It takes place in Maine on, like, this weird island, and I feel like if you're very into, like, plants, being outside, anything like that, I feel like that, like, this book is definitely a great book for that. So yeah, really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star. The only thing I didn't like about the book and why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 is because the beginning of the book and the end of the book, they're like 2 completely different books. And I don't know if that's just because I read it on NetGalley as an ARC or what, but it just felt like things were so unexplained at the beginning, which is kind of on purpose because the whole point is the main character doesn't really know what's going on with this island until the end. But it was just like, you don't know, you don't know, you don't know. And then all of a sudden it's like shoved in your face all at once, and you're like, what is happening? And then all of a sudden there's a villain that kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's this big, huge ordeal. So I do kind of wish there was a little bit more of a cohesiveness between the first half and the second half of the book. But other than that, I felt like it was still a very good book. I'm really glad that I read it. Thank you, NetGalley, for the ARC. The second book that I finished this month is Raybearer by Jordan Ifoko. The reason why I read this book is because my book club book, I am a part of an online book club, and the book club book that we were going to be reading was going to be taking place in the same world as this duology. So I decided to read the first book, so I had kind of a familiarity with the world and with the characters and things like that, and kind of just how things worked. And I've had this in my collection for about a year. I got it last year, about, like, actually through Book Outlet, funnily enough. And I've been wanting to read it for a while. I've heard really great things about it. And yeah, I loved this book. I thought it was a really, really good. And I just, it's so, like, it's such a unique world and such a unique, like, the way that, like, the, like, world works and the way that the people are and the way the magic system is. It's so, like, I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. It was very, very interesting. I loved the characters of this book. Tarisai, who's the main character, she was amazing. Getting to see her growth from being a very isolated, very timid child to this amazing like leader that she became by the time like we got to the end of this book. It was amazing to watch. I loved it so much. I am very excited to read the second book in this duology. And yeah, and I did give it 4 stars as well. One of the main reasons why is because since the world is so unique, it was sometimes hard to kind of follow like how things were working, especially with the language that was used. But that's not really a book problem. That's more of a me problem. You know, being a white suburban girl in the Midwest in America, you know, like, but I think it's also a good thing to expose, you know, myself to, you know, authors and worlds like this, because it does, you know, broaden my, you know, language and, you know, my horizons, if you will. Love this book, 4 stars, and I definitely would recommend it. All right. The next book that I read was also a NetGalley arc, and I'm sorry I don't have a great like picture of it because I read it digitally, so I don't have a physical copy of it, but this is what it looks like. I don't have it like officially like on my Kindle because like I said, I read it as an arc. But anyway, that was the third book, I believe. Yeah. Anyway, so that is the third book that I finished this year. Once again, it was through NetGalley as an arc, and it is basically about a female to man's transgender person by the name of Darby, who goes back to his childhood town and is just trying to figure himself out. And there is a magical realism element because the bookstore that I used to work at when he was in high school is pretty much stuck in the past. And I really enjoyed this book. I loved the character of Darby. He was like such a very relatable character, because even if like I didn't like, you know, relate to like being transgender, because obviously I'm not, it was still really interesting to kind of see like there were so many elements about his life that were very similar to mine. Like at times like he felt like he was very alone, and he felt like he just stuck out like a sore thumb in his surroundings, and I have definitely felt like that. And so for me, like those elements of, you know, the story they were amazing. And I also loved the relationship that he had with his childhood friend Michael, because, you know, when Darby first, you know, leaves his childhood home and decides to, you know, go out into the world, you know, there's a lot of unanswered questions with Michael, like in terms of what happened, because they did have a falling out right before he left. And this book, a good, you know, big plot element of this book was kind of figuring out what happened and why did that relationship end the way that it did. And it was really cool to kind of see how they, you know, not only mixed in the magical realism, but also just like what was going on in the present day and kind of how they all meshed together. I thought was done really, really well. I, you know, wasn't really happy with the way things ended. It kind of was not a very satisfying ending, but at the same time, life isn't satisfying. You know, life doesn't always have a happy ending or an ending that is wrapped up in a beautiful bow. So, I mean, with that, I think that it made things very realistic, and I did appreciate that. So I gave that book 4.5 stars, and I definitely recommend it. It has recently come out as of mid-January. I believe its release date was either the 14th or the 16th. So it's now out in the world. So I totally recommend that you go read it. And once again, thank you to NetGalley so much for letting me read that arc. All right, the next book that I finished is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I loved this book so much. This is book 1 in a series, and it's basically about this group of teenagers that are recruited by the FBI to help them solve cold cases because they all have very natural abilities, whether it's to be reading people, or they're very good at technology, or they are very good at detecting if somebody is lying, anything like that. They're just very good at it, and it's a very natural ability for them. So our main character in this book is Cassie, who is recruited at the beginning of the book, and her mom was murdered 5 years prior to this book taking place. And when she is recruited in this naturals program, her mom's case kind of shows up because there's a potential either a copycat or her actual mom's killer is now going after her. And so, yeah, when I first got into reading, I heard a lot about this book, and I actually got this book very quickly after I got back into reading. And like the thing that really intrigued me about it was people were saying it's basically like Criminal Minds, but YA. And yeah, they're right. It's very reminiscent of Criminal Minds. And I definitely think that if you like this show or shows similar to that, you're really going to enjoy this book. And it makes me so mad that I waited so long to read this book, but life happens. So yeah, this is, like I said, book 1 in a series, and I am very excited to read the rest of the series. I really enjoyed Jennifer Lynn Barnes' writing. I read the first book in her other series, The Inheritance Games, last year about this same time, and I really loved that book. So I'm really excited to dive into this series as well. I definitely recommend it to anybody, especially if you are into true crime or that kind of thing. I think it's really, really great. And I just thought that the writing was really good. And yeah, I did give it 4.5 stars. I probably could have given it 5, but it just didn't have that like 5-star feeling. If I wanted to be like really picky, I would give it like a 4.75, but that's a little too much of a rating for me. So yeah, really enjoyed this book, highly recommend it, and yeah, very excited to start this series. All right, the next book that I did finish is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is another book that I have kind of waited a long time to read. I got this for my birthday last year, and I thought, and I knew I was going to enjoy it. I'm kind of mad that I didn't read this in like the fall, because I feel like it would have been the perfect time of year. I understand why people are saying read this in the fall. I do feel like you can also read it in the winter though, because that's what I did. I read it in the winter, and I still feel like the vibes are really good. So yeah. So this book follows Elspeth, who was infected by this like disease that basically causes magical things to happen with like these kids. And in this world, in this city of Blunder, you have 2 kind of different magical elements happening. The first one that you have is the mist, which is like this bad magic, because like the moment you go into the mist and you're not protected with like any charms or anything, you pretty much go insane and like disappear and die, basically. And then there's this other magic in the form of cards, which kind of are like playing cards or tarot cards. That's kind of the best way to describe them. And those are like, that's like the good magic, the magic you're supposed to use. And like the tarot cards, you know, they're called Providence cards. They have like their own, like each card has its own like magic system. And, you know, while these 2 magic systems are happening in this town, they have an infection that happens. And if a kid is infected, they are supposed to be killed. And the parents, if they hide their kid that is infected, it's considered treason, and they're supposed to be like, you know, also killed. It's very, like, it's a big deal. So Elspeth, when she is a young child, she does get infected, and she does have this magical ability, which for her is to actually see colors from the Providence cards. She can actually see them no matter what the people are wearing. You know, she can see the colors radiating and nobody else can see them. However, when she is first infected, when she's like 9 or 11 or something like that, she gets a hold of one of her uncle's Providence cards called the Nightmare card. And what ends up happening is that this nightmare gets stuck in her head. And it has been living in her head for 11 years by the time we get to finally meet her in this book. And so this book is her not only dealing with having the nightmare in her head, but it's also her being recruited by the kingdom to find all these Providence cards to get rid of the mist and kind of take down, you know, the people that are evil in the kingdom, basically. And I know that's a very long-winded way of describing this book, but it's not as complicated as like I'm making it seem. It is a very good book. Like I said, the vibes are fantastic. I loved them. I also really loved the relationship between Elsbeth and Raven, who is the captain of the Destriers and is the one that recruits her to do all of this. I loved the way that their relationship grew throughout the book. I thought it was really, really good. It was a very natural growth. You know, it wasn't like this thing where it's like, oh, all of a sudden they're like instantly attracted to each other. They take time, and I thought that it was really, really good. So yeah, really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. Because, I mean, once again, like, it didn't feel like a 5-star read or even a 4.5-star read. It felt like 4 was like a really good read. I hear the second book is even better than this one, so I'm really excited, especially because the way things are left at the end of this book. I'm very intrigued to see what happens next. All right, and then the last book that I finished in January is The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Ufoko. This is the book club book that I was talking about earlier. This was our book club read in the online book club that I am a part of. I am a part of Meg's Tea Room's Cozy Quill book club, Cozy Quill Shop book club, something along those lines, where we read a cozy fantasy every single month. And this was our pick for this month. And like I said, it is taken place in the same world as the Raybearer duology. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive that this book actually takes place after the events of the duology. So I'm kind of mad that I didn't read the second book before I read this, but I mean, I didn't really have the time either. So anyway, I'm really glad that I did read at least the first book in the Raybearer duology before I read this, because otherwise I would have been totally confused about what was happening. But yeah, so this book follows Sade, who has lived in an orphanage her whole life, but has now aged out. And she just wants a very normal, low-key life. She is like, I'm going to be a maid, and I'm just going to keep my head down and work. Because that is what she feels like her life is supposed to be. And while she is trying to find a job as a maid, she ends up getting summoned, running into, I don't really exactly remember how it happened, but basically she becomes bonded with this god that has been cursed to eventually turn into a crocodile. And it's basically not only the story of her and realizing that she may be more important than society is making her out to be, but also the crocodile and developing a relationship with Sade, as well as, you know, with realizing like his fate and, you know, that kind of thing. I really enjoyed this book. I thought that this book was really good. It had a very great commentary on classism and how basically the elites make the very low class people feel like no matter, nothing that they will do matters, and why even try? And I thought that that was very, very interesting because I feel like it has very real world, like, you know, I don't know. But I really loved that commentary on it. I thought it was really, really great. And I'm glad. And again, I loved the growth of Sade. I felt like seeing her kind of realize, like, hey, what I can do things that can change, you know, the course of my life. I don't have to, you know, stay like low class or do things if I don't want to. If I feel like something is wrong, I can actually stand up and maybe help change that. And she realizes that not only through the help of the crocodile, but also just people around her. And I thought that was really good. However, I feel like the actual plot was a little eh. I felt like this book, like, it felt, I don't know, it just felt like it was okay. It wasn't great. I did love the character of Sade and the character of the crocodile. However, I feel like things just, I don't know. I feel like the book, like, kind of got lost when it came to plot. Like, you know, apparently Sade makes all these friends at this, you know, elite woman's, you know, house that she does end up becoming a maid for. She develops this great relationship with all of them, and I feel like we barely even get to know them in real life, and yet she's, like, supposed to be, like, best friends and basically, like, absolutely just, like, you know, just connected with these people, and I feel like that I didn't get that. Um, and I don't know, it wasn't bad. This book is not bad, but I feel like it could have been more, if that makes sense. So I did give this a 3.5 star. I definitely don't think that this is a bad book by any means. I think it was just a little confusing, especially at the beginning. At the beginning, I was like, what the heck is happening? I am so confused right now. But that after a couple of chapters that things did start to kind of make sense. But I don't know. I felt like things were just going too fast, and then there was weird stuff happening, and it was just, yeah. Love the characters, just I felt like the plot was a little, like, junky. I don't know. So that concludes my video for this month of what I bought versus what I read. Be sure to come back next month when I do this again, hopefully. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read 6 books next month because I do have some more, like, different events happening these next few months. So I feel like I am glad that I did start out with reading 6 books this month. But I don't know if I'm going to really hit that number again anytime soon because, like I said, I have a lot of stuff going on these next few months. But we'll see, especially now that I have my Kindle. I think that will help. I'm going to try and read more short stories this month. That's kind of my goal. I have a few short stories that are, like, in my collection that I'm wanting to get to. So I feel like, why not do the shortest month of the year and make that short story month? So, yeah, let me know if you want any videos on that or just any videos you want me to make in general. I have one that I've been meaning to make, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video.